Hello, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about how World War II changed the course of fashion. There's always a cause to changes in fashion, what's trendy and what's not, especially before the 1980s when fashion was more consistent and less experimental. Changes in fashion can be caused by a lot of things, from practicality for the wearer, how easy the garment is to make, to the social and economic climate at the time. In this video, I'm going to be specifically talking about women's fashion because I don't really know much about men's fashion at all. And the sort of time period I'm going to be referencing most of the time is mostly the 40s, but particularly the first half of the 40s and sort of a little bit of 1939 when the war began. Instead of the long and modest skirts of the 1930s, the wartime skirts were quite a bit shorter. In fact, shorter than they had ever been except for dance costumes. One of the biggest reasons for this is usually said to be that women just wanted to be able to move more freely, but really probably the biggest contributor was cost. I'd actually like to mention that wearing a long skirt actually gives you pretty much just as much movement, and the shorter a skirt goes, actually the sort of less that you can move because you don't want to expose yourself. Anyways, the war made basically everything much more expensive. Fabric was very costly and some types were even rationed. This meant that making a longer skirt would have been unnecessarily expensive. The inaccessibility of new fabric led to the movement known as make do and mend. Women were encouraged to make clothes out of the fabric of old clothes and to patch things up as much as possible. If it weren't for the war, longer skirts might have endured for much longer. It was of course inevitable that skirts would get very short eventually because hemlines had been rising very slowly for decades. But the war certainly put much more urgency into hemlines rising. With rationing and expensive materials came the newfound appreciation for simplicity. Just about everybody knows what classic style is. Simple and easy to wear garments like black pants, turtlenecks, white button-ups. This style came from World War II. Another important part of the World War II silhouette was the shoulders. Shoulder pads made their first big appearance in the 1940s, and just about everything was made to emphasize the shoulders. The most likely reason for this is the need for confidence. Pretty much everybody during the war years wanted to look powerful. After all, you represent your country, and if you look confident, so does your nation. Shoulder pads also drew inspiration from menswear, and women wearing shoulder pads reflected the fact that women were taking over for the jobs that men would usually do while they were at the front. During World War II, red lipstick also was quite a symbol of confidence. In 1941 in the US, Elizabeth Arden invented the lipstick shade Victory Red. Wearing it was a way for American women to show their support for their country. This overall appreciation of lipstick could definitely be seen as a reason for the growth in interest in makeup in the years following the war. Now, previously to World War II, women's legs were usually covered by what they were wearing. Not just by their skirts, but also by stockings or hosiery, largely as a way to keep their legs warm as well as for modesty. But during World War II, nylon and silk were heavily rationed for the production of parachutes, materials which were used in the making of hosiery. This led to women leaving their legs bare. However, women still did like the look of stockings, so they would often shave their legs and draw a line up the back of each leg with some sort of cosmetic pencil. This simulated the smoothness and the seam that the hosiery would put on the legs. This whole ordeal certainly got women used to having their legs bare, but with a lack of hosiery comes the issue of keeping the legs warm, especially during the winter months. This, plus the fact of women starting to go into more messy and physically taxing lines of work, led to the growing popularity in pants. By the 1950s, women wearing pants was much more mainstream. If it weren't for the war, who knows if pants for women would have become as popular as they are now. Maybe it just would have taken longer to happen, I don't know. The need for materials during the war also led to extreme advances in the production of synthetic fabrics. The ability to make fabric out of plastic that still felt soft and wearable changed the production of clothing for every decade that followed. The fast fashion industry today relies heavily on synthetic fibers. Maybe if the war hadn't created such demand for cheap materials, we wouldn't be in such a terrible position with the pollution of the fast fashion industry today. Those are some of the biggest ways that fashion has been influenced by the Second World War. Without these influences, maybe the clothes we wear today would be totally different. From the growing popularity in makeup to women shaving their legs, there's definitely a lot of changes that could be credited to World War II. Real quick before I finish off the video, I'd like to mention that I have this email where you can send me strange vintage and antique fashion photos for me to react to in videos. That would be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! I need a charger for my computer. Maybe if the war hadn't created such demand for cheap materials, we wouldn't be in such a terrible position with the pollution of the fast... Oh my gosh, I finally was saying it right! Ugh.